Ever since he lied about the assassination of Charlie Kirk and then pretended that he was the victim when people called him a scumbag, it's been a very strange few weeks for Jimmy Kimmel. Now, try putting yourself in his position. You host a comedy show, even though you don't tell any jokes. You make millions of dollars every year, even though you're less popular than novelty YouTube channels that are devoted to stamp collecting. The only reason you're still employed is that everybody, including the executives at your network, have forgotten you existed. And then all of a sudden, you have a large temporary surge in viewers because you say something monumentally stupid and evil. So what's your next move in that situation? I can't say with any degree of confidence what Jimmy Kimmel's next move actually was. Like everybody else in the country, I don't watch his show. At the same time, I couldn't help but notice this recent footage, which was circulating on social media the other day. Apparently, Kimmel's show featured some kind of drag queen story hour segment in which a man dressed as a whorish woman starts reading books to children who are clearly child actors. Watch.
I'm Kristen McCall. Do I scare any of you?
No.
Really?
You just look amazing.
Oh,
why would that be scary?
That is so affirming. Thank you so much. You guys look amazing too.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I have a whole pile of books here. What if we chose one together? Because this is, after all, a democracy. As of this morning, it's still a democracy. I'm not sure. First up, we have, who cares about elderly people?
Yeah. No.
Yeah. This is collectible spoons of the Third Reich.
No. Not at all.
Okay, would you guys like to read a book by President Trump?
Please.
Whoa, hold up. What about President Trump's least favorite son?
Now, you can tell the kids were coached to react negatively when they're told about the Trump book. They overdo it, as most child actors do. So really what we're watching here is a man dressed as a woman pretending to indoctrinate children who have already been indoctrinated. And I guess we're supposed to find this funny or entertaining in some way, even though it's obviously neither. It feels like every other Jimmy Kimmel segment, which is to say it feels like his writers just looked over a list of Democrat Party talking points for the week and decided to make a segment based on those talking points. Whatever the DNC wants Jimmy Kimmel to say or do, he'll say or do it. In that sense, I suppose you could say that this segment does serve some practical purpose. It suggests that even as they're still reeling from their defeat in the last election, Democrats are still clinging to their drag queen obsession of all things. They don't have any sense for how creepy and disturbing this is to the vast majority of Americans, to every single normal person. They haven't changed their messaging or their tactics in the slightest. That's obviously good news for conservatives, even though it's a very bad omen for many children, particularly children in public school. But this segment, it's not just an excellent example of how morally bankrupt and frankly disturbing the left has become. It's also Exhibit A for something I said recently on this show, which is that intolerance is a virtue. You know, there are some behaviors and beliefs that a moral society simply cannot tolerate. Now, you might think this statement is a self-evidently true, uncontroversial thing to say, but apparently it's not. So let's recap by going over what I said the other day, and first we'll play the clip. Watch. Here's how it works. Right? The left comes along with something they want to do, some agenda item, something bad, always. And the first reaction from everybody usually is, well, that sounds terrible. Why would we want that? No, let's not do that. Oh, you want to destroy the institution of marriage? You want us to pretend that men are married when they're not? No, let's not. Oh, you want to castrate kids? You want men in the women's locker room? No, that's insane. We're not doing that. Oh, you want to flood our country with third worlders? No, like there's literally no benefit to us whatsoever. Why do we want to do that? And so that's usually people's first reaction. But then the left, they get to work and they demand tolerance. That's the first thing. They demand tolerance. They say, well, you know, you might not like it, but you should put up with it. Should be tolerant. And then they demand affirmation after they get tolerance. And then they demand celebration. And then they demand participation. Okay, so it's tolerance, affirmation, celebration, participation. Before we get all the way to participation, we should say no. Now, you know what? I'm not even going to tolerate this. I am actively opposed to this. I think it's bad. I don't want it in my community, and I don't want it in my country. We need to be intolerant. Intolerance is a virtue. Intolerance is good. Intolerance is holy. Intolerance is Christian. Intolerance is moral and courageous. Intolerance is biblical. Intolerance is loving. Loving to your family, to your country, to your way of life that you should be protecting. Now, the point I'm making here isn't even unique to conservatism or the right. There are many prominent liberal thinkers, including John Locke, the father of liberalism, who have made similar arguments. But you don't need to be well-versed in classical philosophy to get the point. We all know it's true simply based on our day-to-day observations. Tolerance, particularly in the hands of the modern left, it's a Trojan horse. In the span of a decade, we went from just tolerate gay marriage, it doesn't harm you anyway, to affirm my pronouns and my fake gender, or you deserve to die a horrible death. Oh, and by the way, we're going to get you fired from your job if we don't kill you. So that's where tolerance leads in many cases. It's an invitation to be taken advantage of. As G.K. Chesterton puts it, tolerance is the virtue of the man without convictions. And we should stop pretending otherwise, especially after everything we've seen in recent years. But on the left, even among the self-styled free thinkers on the left who are willing to have some dialogue with conservatives, my comments were not meant with resounding approval. For example, Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks posted this response, quote, Matt Walsh said we need to be intolerant. Intolerance is a virtue. Intolerance is good. Intolerance is holy. Intolerance is Christian. Intolerance is moral and courageous. This is why I'm on the left. When some on the right say this about any of us, Muslims, blacks, gay people, etc., you're saying we don't want you. Okay, I heard that loud and clear. Then do you expect my vote after you told me you can't even tolerate me? I know he doesn't speak for everyone on the right or even a majority, but it's guys like him who use culture wars to divide us. Another reason why I hate the culture wars. I think our greatest strength is when we are the United States of America. Well, I got bad news, Cenk, by the way, is on the point about intolerance. I do definitely speak for the vast majority of conservatives. Almost all of them would absolutely agree with everything I said about intolerance. Now, first of all, you have to kind of admire the gall of a guy whose show is named The Young Turks, telling us that tolerance is a virtue. The Young Turks in the late Ottoman Empire were not exactly known for their tolerance, to put it mildly. I'm sure the show is ironically named, so we'll give them a pass on that. But secondly, if the word tolerance has any meaning at all, then by definition, there has to be intolerance as well. There must be some things that we simply do not tolerate. If anyone can be tolerant of anything, there have to be things that we don't tolerate. So the question is not whether intolerance should exist. It has to exist. We can't live in some fantasy world where no one needs to be intolerant of anything, as Cenk implies. If we did that, then the idea of tolerance would be meaningless. Now, here's and tolerance is kind of meaningless, actually. So here's the point. Here's the point about tolerance. I say intolerance is a virtue because it is. Tolerance, on the other hand, is not a virtue. That doesn't mean I'm opposed to tolerance in all contexts. It means that it's not a virtue. And I'll explain why, even though this is the kind of thing that shouldn't need to be explained. Are there things that we should tolerate? Yes, obviously. There's lots of things we should tolerate. I tolerate stuff every day. I'm a pretty intolerant guy. And I tolerate things. I tolerate every person I walk by on the street. I'm constantly tolerating. But there is nothing virtuous or noble about it. Okay, tolerance is not a virtue. It's not something that we need to encourage. We don't need to laud people who demonstrate tolerance. It takes no courage or even any effort to tolerate things. Tolerating a tolerable thing makes sense. It's logical. It's not a heroic act. It's not an act at all. You can tolerate while doing nothing. You can tolerate while sitting on your couch. You can lounge in your living room eating Doritos while congratulating yourself for all the tolerating you're doing. Hey, everyone, look at me. I'm being tolerant. You can declare as the crumbs fall on your shirt. That's why I never said, as has been claimed by my critics, that tolerance is bad or has no place in society or whatever. Tolerance is the default state of all people. Tolerance is the lowest effort thing you can do because you aren't doing anything. Which, again, when you're tolerating tolerable things, fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm just saying, I'm not going to give you credit for that. I'm being tolerant. Okay, good for you. What, so you're doing nothing? It's like you're just doing nothing and allowing someone to do something. Cool. Good for you. It's not the kind of thing we need to, like, we don't need pastors up on the pulpit preaching, well, this is why we should be tolerant. Which pastors do preach about that all the time. And a lot of people love to hear it because it requires nothing of you. That's the great thing about tolerance as a virtue. I don't have to do anything. It requires absolutely nothing. Which is why it's not a virtue. Intolerance is a virtue, though, because it is active. It is a thing you do. All virtues are things you do. If a virtue requires you to do nothing, it is not a virtue. If you're saying to yourself, wow, I really like this virtue because I don't have to do anything. This is a really easy virtue to have. Well, hate to break it to you, that means it's not a virtue. Intolerance requires you to get up and do something or speak out or at least stop chomping on the Doritos for a second. Intolerance is noble and brave, provided, of course, that it's directed at something actually bad. Yeah, that's the one qualifier. Intolerance is only virtuous if it's directed at evil. Obviously, being intolerant to good things is not virtuous. I would think that such a stipulation is so obvious that it doesn't need to be said out loud. Intolerance to, something benign, right, makes you a jerk. Or if you've got a whole bunch of pet peeves, this is why we say pet peeves are like, well, that's the reason we call it your pet peeve. It's just something that annoys you, but isn't really bad necessarily. But that's why it's a pet peeve. It's a pet. It's yours. And so being intolerant of people who are doing something that's a pet peeve of yours, that makes you a jerk, right? Intolerance to something good and virtuous makes you a leftist. But intolerance to what is truly evil and wrong makes you a good person. It is a loving and good act. And we have not had nearly enough intolerance in our society. And that fact, the fact that it ever became mainstream to brainwash children into thinking they're the opposite sex and then castrate them, that's all the evidence we need, that we are sorely lacking intolerance in our culture. Far too many people were far too tolerant of that evil and so many other evils for far too long. There were only a very few people who were willing to stand up and say, no, you know what? I'm not going to tolerate this. I don't tolerate it. And they were condemned by a lot of the tolerant types, even on the right. And I know this for a fact. I was there. And that's why I said, after watching the New York mayor's debate, in which the Muslim socialist attacked his challenger because he couldn't name a mosque that he had visited, it's clear that this country needs to embrace intolerance far more broadly than we currently are. Because we also should not tolerate hordes of foreign nationals who invade our country and then demand that we respect their beliefs and customs, including foreign nationals from the Muslim world who want to destroy Western civilization, demanding that we assimilate to them rather than they assimilate to us. We should not tolerate socialists who want to destroy our economy and dismantle the police department and close the prisons and raise taxes by tens of billions of dollars so that degenerate hobos and felons can supposedly, have free bus rides or whatever. We shouldn't tolerate men who dress up as women in the service of a delusion, especially when they are trying to impose it on children. Everything I'm saying here, all the statements that I'm actually making, the ones I've said on the show and on social media, would have been completely uncontroversial in this country as recently as a few decades ago. And they should not be controversial today. We should react to Jimmy Kimmel's drag queen sketch the same way that even a Bill Clinton voter would have reacted in 1992, with the maximum possible degree of intolerance. And we should be intolerant, proudly intolerant, of anyone who stomps his feet and claims otherwise. And that is why everyone demanding that conservatives display tolerance for depraved and degenerate behavior are today canceled. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.